Morning, everybody. This is RBN TV. It is 10:30 on a Friday morning. My name is Al Sini.
I'm Joe Osmendi.
And this is
CEO Chat,
as it has been for the last 4 years.
Yes, it is. Yes, absolutely.
We have a terrific guest, and this is a guest that I've been looking forward to now for months to interview.
Okay.
His name is Hilton Barbour. Hilton, welcome to CEO Chat.
Great to see you both.
And there he is. And Hilton is a marketing expert with an interesting philosophy. He's actually the VP of marketing for a company in Canada called Cognitive.
Okay.
But what really sets Hilton apart is everything he talks about, everything that he posts about on LinkedIn, which is the value of culture in business success. And he's also a great storyteller. So right to you, Hilton. What is culture and why is it so important?
Well, I'll say that culture really is any organization's ability to deliver on their strategy. And for me, I'm a 20 plus year marketing veteran, but time and again, the realization that whatever great marketing strategy your organization may create, it really does come down to your culture and your culture's desire to execute on that strategy. So for me, the notion of strategy and culture having an intersection has been one of the most pivotal things that I've come to realize in the last decade. And that has driven my passion to understand culture more deeply and really see it as a competitive advantage for companies who get it right.
That is a lot of words, and they're great words, and it's exactly what you post on LinkedIn. But what really brought it home for me was the story you told me on our phone call about a month ago about the washing machine. Tell us about your washing machine.
Well, if your viewers will excuse the momentary PTSD from reliving that experience, the truth of the matter is my wife and I bought a new washing machine and dryer, a classic pandemic purchase. And we were having it delivered to the house. And after much trial and tribulation, we had a moment where the washer was left unceremoniously in our front yard while the people delivering it drove off. And my wife and I were sitting at the time talking to the customer service representative while the truck was driving off into the distance. And we had a big lumbering washing machine in the center of our garden. And we had neighbors walking by, I suppose, wondering how much the housing prices in our neighborhood were declining. But it was a classic moment where my wife and I had sat and invested in this particular organization because we believed that they would expertly deliver the goods that we had purchased. And we had this classic moment where expectations set by a marketing group were expectations not met by the customer service people on the phone or by the people delivering the product. And that gaping gap, that massive gap between expectations set and expectations mismanaged, struck me as a really clear sense of how broken perhaps their culture was, because the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing.
So putting your marketing hat back on for a second, you put on your collateral, you put in your print ads, you put in your TV commercials. We love our customers. And then you drop their washing machine off in the middle of their front yard and walk away. So if I can't think of a better way to demonstrate the importance of behavior matching, living up to the promise that you make as a company, than exactly that. And yet hardly any companies actually ever pay attention to that, do they?
They don't. And I think, when we've spoken previously, I had said to you, imagine you could invoice a company for the impact of time spent listening to your business is very important to us, please hold.
Right.
I would love to be able to create an invoice and send it to the companies who have taken days out of my life while I've listened to that message on their recordings. But I think, Al, if we get back to the fundamentals of it, fundamentals really are, as marketing people, we are driven by one objective, which is to drive growth for the companies we work for. That's our job. But when we do that, we're also creating an expectation internally that our colleagues will follow through and be able to deliver on the expectations we set. And time and again, when there is a mismatch between the expectations we set and the experience we deliver, I would suggest that comes down to your culture time and again.
So what is broken inside the CEO's head? I mean, there's something they're not doing that they need to do. Help them out. They watch our program. So what does the CEO need to do starting Monday morning that breaks the tradition of causing the bad culture that's working against their advertising?
Well, I'd say the very first thing is changing perhaps what their definition of culture is. I think historically we've looked at culture as something warm and fuzzy that we leave to the HR department, and it involves vegan muffins and beer card Fridays. And it's a warm little blanket that we hug our people with. The truth of the matter is it's not. Your culture, quite simply, is the environment that your people work in, but more importantly, how decisions are made, the behaviors of how we act and make decisions. And I think the critical part is, for anybody watching this show, is not to think of culture as a warm and fuzzy, but to think of it as the most primary driver of your business. It's your people's ability to make decisions that allow them to execute the strategy you've created. Because if they don't, that strategy is as worthless as the paper or the PowerPoint it's printed on. That would be my first thing. Recalibrate what you believe is the definition of culture and look at it as an opportunity for competitive advantage. That should be the very first reorientation on Monday morning.
Hey, Hilton, how do you distinguish between brand and culture?
Truth of the matter is, I don't. For me, they are in some ways synonymous. I think you can't separate, I'm going to say, great customer service cultures. Let's look at Zappos, Southwest, Four Seasons, all classic examples of great customer service organizations and brands that are built on great customer service. The truth is, great customer service to me is an outcome of your culture. It's not an objective, it's an outcome. When your people who are at the point of customer recognize and are able to deliver world-class service, that's because the culture allows them to do it. Yeah. That, I think, is the critical differentiator.
Okay, now for people watching our programs, obviously your story is about a business to consumer, kind of a gap between culture and reality. But this works as well for business to business companies too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think there is no organization on the planet who is not impacted by their culture, regardless of the sector that they serve. I think look at it this way, Al. At the risk of Friday morning alliteration, if you think of your culture as three things, or the ability to do three things. One, cohesion. Do we all know what the business needs to do to deliver on our strategy? Do we all understand that, and do we all agree with it? Two, collaboration. And by collaboration, I don't mean what we often call is consensus. Collaboration doesn't always mean saying yes to the other people in the room. Collaboration does mean working together to get to an outcome. And collaboration, I would suggest, is the second part of your culture. How do you collaborate? Do you collaborate well? Do you collaborate at all? And then the third would be consistency. And again, I think as we talk about branding and marketing, consistency, we all know, is a hallmark of a well-defined brand and a well-executed brand. Same thing, I would say, is your culture. If there's inconsistency, if one part of your organization doesn't make decisions or allow decisions to be formed the way that others do, that's going to be a problem, particularly when it meets the consumer. So when the guy dropping off my washing machine has a different view of what the expectations are to the person on the 1-800 number, we've got a problem.
What kind of, listen, because some of the people who watch our program operate, run, or manage not-for-profits, I want to remind them that it's just as important, whether you're doing what you're doing for love or for money, this is critical to your ability to deliver on the promise you make to the world. Your culture has to match, has to support in every way possible that promise. And I think the points you make about collaboration within a company are so critical. My question is, I know you say an awful lot about this on LinkedIn, and you've kind of built a reputation for yourself. Your audience is growing. What are they attracted to? What is it that's resonating with them?
Well, ordinarily I would say it would be my devilishly good looks, but now that we're doing this with a camera, that's now put that fallacy to bed. I think the reality is there is a growing recognition that your culture really is the one part of your business that is truly unique, that you can truly own, and that you can truly impact. Again, as a classic marketer, I think we would all recognize that you might look to your 4 Ps historically and say, where do I get advantage from those? And that's getting harder to do. It's getting a whole bunch harder to do. But I think the reality is your culture is truly uniquely your own. It cannot be borrowed, it cannot be copied, it cannot be mimicked, it cannot be stolen. Those realities, I think, is why organizations recognize, particularly now when we're under pressure with COVID, and executing strategies never been more important. I think people are recognizing maybe I don't have a culture that lets me execute the strategy I'm under significant pressure to do. And I think that comprehension is finally dawning for many leaders.
So you think the pandemic has actually made corporations more aware of their culture and take more responsibility for it?
I would love to say it has. I think, as we all know, there's often a big gap between realization and action. I think it would be quite fair to say many organizations are looking at the stress they're under and wondering why they are struggling to execute. Some, I think, naturally go, maybe the answer lies in my culture. I think others haven't. So I would love to say that there's a grand awakening to the ability for culture to change the trajectory of your company. I think some organizations are taking just a little bit longer to get there. Others are diving in feet first and saying, we've got to fix this.
Wow. Well, we need to take a break, but I'm, for a whole bunch of reasons, loving this conversation, Hilton, and as I expected I would. When we come back after the break, we'll talk more about the marketing of culture, how you represent to people what your culture is so that they get to know you. In this world, often I never meet anybody from the company I'm doing business with, and yet I have a picture in my head of what those people are like, and a lot of that is marketing. We'll talk about that after we come back from this break. More CEO Chat in a minute.
This new family, and I don't know what it is about this one, but she can't seem to put down that toy all day long. Tap, 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 tap. Oh, and she even talks to it. She talks to that more than she talks to him. What's up, bro? Nice shirt. Who's she talking to? Her mom? She talks to her mom a lot.
Hello, I'm Mark Iorio. I'm one of the hosts here at RVN TV. We're asking every one of our viewers to go out and vote. Only 60% of eligible voters actually get out and vote during the general election. It's your duty, it's your civic duty to do so.
Get out and vote. Do your part and vote.
Many men and women have sacrificed their lives for your right to vote. Please vote this year.
Vote in person, vote by mail, just vote.
Every vote counts, so vote.
Get your ass up and go vote. Do you hear me? Go vote.
We're back.
We're back with more of CEO Chat and a terrific guest, Hilton Barbour. My name is Al Cini.
Joe Osamendi here.
Just like before the break, the
Yes, it
names
is.
have not changed.
Hilton,
Hilton is, you know, I can represent you. I can say that what I know about you, which is that you're a marketing expert with a really tight focus on culture. But when you talk the way you talk, you're really a business consultant, because business success hinges on exactly what you're talking about. So now that we live in a world where I may never encounter the people who work for the company I do business with because of COVID or because so much is done online these days, from a marketing point of view, if you're representing a company and you want people to taste, experience, feel the culture, how do you do that in your copy, in your imagery?
Well, I think the very first thing, Al, has to be, what is it that we want, as always with marketing, what is it that we want our customer to take away from our communication? What is it that is going to set us aside? You know? And this is perhaps the one of the many culture quotations, if you will, that I come back to time and again. There's a wonderful fellow out of San Francisco called Stan Slapp, who runs a culture consultancy. And he has this wonderful expression of, you can't sell it outside if you don't sell it inside. So if you can't get your people inside to sort of coalesce and form behind what you're selling outside, that's when the gap begins. So if I may, even before you get to what you manifest outside your organization, have you got the internal audience aligned and on deck and cohesive in that fashion? Have you done that work first? And I would suggest that is a marketing task as well. That is a set audience that you need to do the same things you would do to an external audience. What is it that makes us different? What is it we're trying to achieve? What role do you play in delivering that? These, to me, are all marketing and communication tasks, because those are the things your colleagues need to know. How do I contribute? Whether I'm at a call center, delivering a washing machine, you know, walking a store floor. How do I contribute? And I think the important thing is, where are we going and how are we going to get there? That's what our colleagues need to know. So when they go out and deliver against that, our marketing will align with the experience. But it has to start inside. And on that point, I think people like Stan Slapp have absolutely got it right in terms of priority. Sell it inside, align it inside, and then you can sell it with confidence outside, knowing that you will deliver against those expectations.
Well, you know, your washing machine story really illustrates that really well. What was happening inside with the marketing people, et cetera, certainly didn't translate to the delivery people, because they were dipped on two different planets, basically.
Yeah, that was a great example of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But guys, I mean, let me give you perhaps another example from 15 years ago. And this is before I had the sort of epiphany, if you will, about culture and marketing. I was sitting with a colleague in a conference room when the first iPhone came out. And my colleague in the UK at the time held it up to a group of engineers and said, "This is the future of mobile telephony." And they started laughing. They said, "Well, what does that music company know about mobile phones?" The irony is, we were talking to a bunch of Nokia engineers who, if you recollect at the time, had over 80% market share in the mobile phone business. Today, Apple is an over $2 trillion organization, and Nokia exists as a line item in a Microsoft balance sheet. So I would suggest to you, your culture can create those kinds of behaviors. And in the case of Nokia, it created a blind spot that said, we're impenetrable, we're invincible. There's nobody who knows more about this category than ourselves. So again, when I think about the impact of culture, it is on all those types of attitudes and behaviors and decisions inside an organization.
Now, while you were talking, I was thinking about CEOs that I've worked with. And I've known a lot who are pretty much afraid to come out of their offices because they might bump into an employee. And I knew a few of them who actually had a separate way in and out of their offices so that they could avoid their people. And to me, anyway, as soon as a CEO or a business leader starts behaving that way, they've really begun a process of decline inside their companies where eventually they're going to lose their customers and their employees. So you can't do this without communicating with your people. That's just all there is to it. You got to start that right. And you can't do it, I like to tell people if a mission statement worked, we would all have them on our birth certificates. A lot of CEOs think you write or compose or hire somebody to write or compose your mission statement. That defines your purpose well enough. You can print it somewhere and then never talk about it again.
Well, I agree with everything that you've said, Al, and I think part of the skepticism and in places the cynicism often arises from people looking at a wonderful poster on a wall or a pithy statement on a coffee mug, and they say, those are a remarkably inspiring set of words. It's a pity that we don't follow through on that intent. And it's a pity that our actions belie what we say on the wall. Again, the wonderful thing about culture and the crazy thing about culture is it's entirely about humans and human motivation. And again, to sort of borrow from many of the people who write and work in the culture space, the way to look at your culture is a mark of the commitment of your people. Do you have their commitment? Their commitment to help your business succeed. Because if you don't have their commitment, it's going to be really hard for you to get anything done inside that company. I think we talked previously about an interesting comment that I'd heard in a presentation, which has always stayed with me. I was in a presentation and one of the engineering leads at 3M said, my job is to increase the share of shower of my people. Which, as a marketing person, the minute you hear share of anything, your ears prick up. And he went on to say, 3M is all about creativity and innovation. And when I create an environment where my people in the shower are thinking about the business, we succeed. He said, that's my only job, is to create more share of shower. And I thought, what a remarkable way to show a person who wanted to get that commitment from his people. And I think we can look at 3M in terms of creativity and innovation and say, they've done a pretty damn good job.
Wow. So larger companies that have HR departments, HR directors, chiefs of HR, they're really marketing departments, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I don't think they know that, Hilton. So say something to them about how they can earn that place at the table they have always said they wanted.
Well, I think the truth of the matter is they are great partners to marketing people. And there's a sort of this weird notion I've heard in several places where HR is our internal marketing and marketing is our external marketing. And to me, that sort of belies the reality of the two should be working together. Because the reality is, guys, both organizations are about motivating behavior. As a marketing person, I'm trying to motivate consumer behavior to pick my product, to pick it more often, to pay the price that I put on the label. And internally, we're trying to motivate our people to deliver on expectations, collaborate in a way that we can create new products, collaborate and work together so we can deliver that product on time and on budget. These are all about behaviors. And that's why marketing and HR really have a behavioral focus. And they should be working together at the very least.
That's a very good point, because when I think about HR departments, I think about the main thing they're focusing on is compliance. And they don't think about, right, they don't think about marketing. It's compliance and benefits is what they think about. How do you get that mindset to change?
Well, at the risk of dropping more pithy statements into this conversation, I think the reality is it's a mindset. I would characterize it as focus on the possibility, not just the policy. Because if your attitude is around compliance and around executing on policies, really what that is an exercise in risk mitigation. And I can understand why it's necessary. But again, if you look at many of the organizations who put their culture forward, they say one of the simplest things that we've done is treat our people like adults. Netflix will say, we don't have a vacation policy. You take the vacation you need. And I think the best example I've ever seen is Mary Barra, who is the CEO of GM. When she was asked about dress code, which at GM used to be pages in their employee handbook, she said, here's what it is. Dress appropriately. It didn't need 15 pages in a handbook. It just needed somebody to say, you're an adult, dress appropriately. Let's get on with it then. You know, we've got other things to do, like earn market share, not to write 15 pages about how to dress for various meetings.
Wow. You make it sound like a ministry, and that's because it is. And we're coming up on that part of the program where everybody gets to learn from you, Reverend Hilton Barbour, where they can reach you. But before that, real quick, how did this journey start for you?
I think, like many marketing people, it really is about how do we grow preference for the brands and the businesses we work on? And we're only able to do that if we're as good as the expectations we deliver in the market. Not that we set, but that we deliver. You know, we all classically know marketing is about promises made and promises met. And it always struck me, or increasingly struck me, what would be the impediment to that happening? And time and again, from my own personal experience and things I've read, it appeared culture was either that accelerant or that impediment. So for me, any marketer who doesn't have an appreciation of culture to help them do what they do is missing a significant opportunity.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, right.
Didn't I tell you this guy would be a great guest?
Absolutely.
You promised me you'd be a great guest, and you've delivered on that promise, Hilton. Tell everybody now how they can reach you if they want to get to know you and maybe learn more about this.
The best place is always LinkedIn, Al. That is where I write, and that is probably the best place for people to connect with me. So LinkedIn, Hilton Barbour, Barbour, and I'm always happy to chat with folks, particularly on this topic.
That's actually, LinkedIn is where we met too, and since we've met, I connected and reached out to Stan Slapp on your recommendation, and I really appreciate that. LinkedIn, by the way, is a great place to go just for business networking in general, and every now and then you uncover a real gem like Hilton Barbour, and they're always great people to know, and this is a guy you really want to get to know. So Hilton, thank you for joining us today on CEO Chat.
It's been a delight, guys. You have yourself a great Friday.
Yeah, well,
You too.
thanks. And thanks for joining us. And thanks all of you for watching today. We'll be back with another CEO Chat next week. Until then, I'm Alcini.
Joe Osmendi here.
You all have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.
Take care. Happy Halloween.
Thank you.